Good morning, guys. Welcome to I Want to Believe chat show. And my name is Peter Wren, and we are going to be talking today about, what we're talking about. We're not talking about that. Today, we're going to be interviewing Paul Drake. Paul Drake is a seasoned paranormal investigator from the UK, my motherland. And I'm just going to pass you over to Kathy.
Hello, guys. My name is Kathy Rogers. I am a psychic intuitive and a paranormal investigator, or I guess kind of a previous paranormal investigator, I suppose is the best way to say it. Yeah. How are you doing, Peter?
Good. How's your week been?
What's up?
How's your week been?
My week has been good. So, I don't know if you guys know me from my other channel. So I do have another channel called Oracle Intuitions. And on that channel, we do a live reading show every Wednesday. We also do a live interview show every Sunday. And that interview show is basically we bring on, different guests where we bring on like tarot readers or psychics, or, we had a hypnotist, a witch. So it's kind of an interesting show. And this week was kind of interesting, though, Peter, because so back in November, I was driving past this gas station, and in my head, as I'm looking at the sign on the gas station, I kept seeing that it kept saying out of gas, or sold out, like sold out. And then I'd look again and I saw the actual price of the gas. So it was like kind of going in and out. And I thought, well, that's really weird. And then I kept having this feeling like somehow our gas was going to be affected. Maybe not here in Canada, but somewhere. Like it just felt like gas was either going to go really up, or we were going to be sold out, or there was going to be a panic in regards to gas. And it was funny because, a couple of days before it kind of happened, I was like, oh, maybe it was one of those visions that I just had and, kind of forget about, right? And maybe it's not happening or whatever. 2 days later, we turn on the news, and in the States, they were having all kinds of like a gas kind of crisis. So I don't know if that's still kind of going on. I haven't really paid much attention to it but I did notice our prices are really going up, and I believe that they are in BC as well. Is that correct?
There's been a slight increase in Kamloops, but I haven't really kind of delved too far into that. I haven't left my house all week, so I haven't even seen daylight yet. Probably, well, I've been outside, but I haven't left my house. But what's interesting about that, Kathy, if you would have mentioned that story about 200-300 years ago, you would have got burnt to the stake.
Right? This is so true. This is so true. And I think even now, to some degree, it's not particularly being burned at the stake, but it's people that kind of maybe doubt.
Yeah, well, it doesn't fall into how society was back then, without going to much of a religious banter about it or anything like that. But pretty much weird. Yeah. Anyway, let's bring on this week's guest. Let's bring on Paul Drake. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Hi, Paul. Nice to have you.
How's the sunny motherland doing for you?
It's wet.
Is it wet?
And raining. Yeah. I had to look out there to make sure it is.
Oh, God. So whereabouts are you in the UK, Paul?
We're based in Lincoln. That's on the east coast of the United Kingdom.
Okay. I don't know much about Lincoln. What is it? Is it big? Is that a city, or is it like considered a state or a province?
Lincoln is part of Lincolnshire. Lincolnshire is one of the biggest states in provinces in UK.
Okay.
We have things like the Lincoln Cathedral, 1,000-year-old building still in use. We are the home to the Red Arrows, International Bomber Command. So we've got a lot of history over there.
Oh, okay. Wow. Well, it's an honor to have you. And you're an investigator, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And you have your own team?
We do have a team. Our team is Paranormal Links. At the moment, we're 14 members. unfortunately, we are looking for more people. What we're trying to do is to have a team out every night of the week. We've got that much in the way of bookings that the only way to keep them all is to get somebody going all the time.
I suppose now the COVID restrictions have been lifted over in the UK as well. It's kind of like let's get at it, and everyone's and you're just dealing with the backflux of infections.
Yeah, I agree there, Pete. But at the moment, I'm putting the brakes on. I don't want to go flying out the door and start doing things and not follow it up. So we're trying to be methodological about it. We start our investigations back in June. So there's a few more weeks yet before we go. But in that time, I want to get to mindset of doing investigations again. But it's 12 months since we've done some. But it's also a chance to do things in a new manner. Forget the old. Let's start anew. And see how it takes us. Good.
So tell us a little bit about your history. How did you get into the paranormal? How did you start? What intrigued you into this field?
Oh, wow. Well, Paranormal itself started 20 years ago next year. Personal opinion of how I started in the paranormal was way back in the 1980s. I actually had I cited something for myself. I used to work for a company where we used to put fruit machines, like gaming machines, into pubs. And I went into a certain pub that was closed. It was early in the morning, so nobody drinking. At that time, we didn't have 24-hour drinking anyway, so that was a no-no. There was two people in that pub. There was myself and the barman. I put the machine in, went to the barman to give him my paperwork, and I saw somebody sat at a table. Now, this chap that sat at the table had long black hair. I think they call it a cravat, a white collar, and he just looked out of place. And when I turned around to the barman and said, "You're having people drinking here earlier," and he said, "What people?" When I turned around, he'd gone. He weren't there. So that was part of one of the key points starting to have an interest in paranormal.
It's funny, over the years when I was back in the UK and investigating, the amount of pubs that drew my attention just by these stories. And it's not so much the historical pubs, like the one that was just up the road from me was built in the I think it was the 16th century. But we've got, there's ones around the UK. In fact, the oldest one I think dates back to the 800. Was it it was built in 1100.
What part of the country is that? What part of the country is that?
I think it's in Warwickshire. It's a pub called I can't remember what it's called. It was built in 1100s. It's the oldest pub in the UK. Is it the Bell or something like that? I can't remember what it was off the top of my head. But anyway, yeah, it's weird that there's always a kind of correlation between energy and pubs and stuff like that, and paranormal activity, that kind of thing.
They just enjoy having a beer.
Pretty much.
Spirits.
Yeah.
Spirits.
Yeah, they're enjoying their spirits.
Pretty much.
Following on from that, I saw an article in a magazine about 1983-4ish. It was regarding the monument at a place called Woodall Spa, where it was a group of people having a photograph. I think there were choir singers. And in the middle of those choir singers was a dog. This dog appeared in the photograph, but it wasn't there when the photographer took the picture. Now, that caught my interest, but then I sort of ignored it for a long time into the turn of this century. And the article appeared again. That was it. I was back into doing this.
What kind of places? So, I mean, it fascinates me because here in Canada, if we investigate, I mean, they're there's to be honest, there's not a long, like a long history, right? Like we're maybe looking at 100, maybe 200 years of history, you know, in most places. Like we don't have these hundreds, like 1700, 1800s. I hear this and it fascinates me to be able to, you know, I would love to be able to investigate something like that, because here it's like, yeah, we've got a warehouse, you know, we built it 20 years ago. I mean, that's pretty much, you know, what we're taking looks at here. Maybe an older hotel, like with a history of like 50 to 100 years. Like we don't have these, you know, buildings or places or historical sites that have hundreds of years of, you know, history behind them. And so it must be fascinating to be able to investigate some of these places. Where did you find, like, what place did you go in that you were kind of in awe of?
Oh, all of them.
Yeah.
Something I learned very early on with doing paranormal investigations is not to decide what the building is before we go into it. I mean, you can stand outside an old building and go, oh, this is going to be haunted. Just because it looks haunted doesn't mean it's going to be. So that is one of the first things I got out of my mind.
Right.
Take a building for what it is and let the evidence speak for itself. Whether or not the building is 10 years old or 1,000 years old, it's still history.
Right.
It still has people going there. It's had arguments, it's had energies. So let the building, let the evidence speak, and then decide afterwards.
What a beautiful way to put it. I like that. Yeah, it gives a different perspective. I like that.
So when I started investigating back in London 26, 27 years ago, it was very much it was very much a kind of a taboo subject, and obviously there was no social media or anything like that. There was no Facebook, so you can promote your group or anything like that. It was pretty much all word of mouth, and we had opportunities to go to certain historical locations because of promoting cancer research, fundraising, and stuff like that. But generally back then it was very much a very hush-hush taboo subject. Like if I approached my local pub and said, you know, is there any chance that I can come in here? You know, they'll basically bar me for life kind of thing, because, you know, I even mentioned the word ghost or anything like that. How has that evolved over the years now in relation to back then?
I think the easiest way to say that is cost. Because back then, when you probably started doing it, probably a bit of money. Now, a lot of places want good money to go into it just because the word ghosts or paranormal in front of it. A lot of places aren't really interested in the history, but they are interested in if you can bring them some extra money into their books. But that to me is that's the negative side of what we see. But when you say you started 27 years ago, Pete, you were what you call a game starter. You know, you set down the rules. Rules is probably not the word to use. But you set down the means by which we start looking. You know, you've got people's interest, and that blossomed out. That's thanks to people like you who started off in the first place.
Yeah, when we started, it was, well, the first group that I joined it was a slightly different approach to what we use now. It's more, if I can compare the parallels between my first group to what I'm currently doing now, like I've evolved over the years. Like the first group I was with were more spiritual, and it was more instead of using technology, we used more of our senses and that kind of thing. And for what we deemed back then as evidence, it would be personal experiences, which now, you know, on a reference to that, now that whole concept's totally flipped. You have to, you know, in order to validate your claims, to quantify it, it's been, you know, it's deemed to us that we have to quantify it into, you know, physical evidence kind of thing. And, you know, like a EVP or a picture and stuff like that. And it's weird how how the field's evolved over the years to get to that point. Like now, if you use personal experiences as evidence, you're shone upon. You're not,
Oh yeah.
You're not allowed to use your gifts or anything like that, because there is 99.9% of the people that say that have gifts and stuff like that don't actually have gifts, just purely by my own experience. And that's why it became that that apparent now that you have to, it has to be the EVP, it has to be that picture that you have to provide, or that video, or that kind of footage, or anything like that. It's it's been a rocky boat, like especially the kind of the jump ship to come into North America as well, where it's fixated more on like the way the TV shows do it, rather than the way we did it in the UK. Like I had a bit of a gap between when I started investigating in Canada in relation to the UK, because I lived in Australia and New Zealand for a few years. And then when I came out here, what was the norm out here was totally different to what it was back in the UK. Like in relation to, how we delivered investigations and stuff like that. And now what I've seen is that there's, like, obviously apart from yourself, Paul, because you've got that kind of, and I hate using that old school mentality, but you've got the way that you approach things is the way that we did originally. There's a kind of thought process in it and stuff like that. But now, the whole world's evolved into that, that Ghost Adventures mentality, or the taps mentality, where they go out and they just sit in a room and there's no thought process into it or anything like that. There's no gathering of data or anything like that. It's just purely going out and slapping your tape recorder on the floor and just waiting for something to happen, kind of thing, if that makes sense. But,
carry on.
No, it's your interview. So over the years, obviously, because of what you have in the UK, is like Kathy mentioned as well, you have a kind of rich. I say we because I still class England as my home, but we have a much vaster, richer historical value than what they do in North America. Like, in comparison to America as well, if you put both of them into the equation. What kind of historical places have you been to? And what kind of experiences you had in those places?
Wow. RF bases. We've been to, had a couple of investigations in RF bases. One, RF Scampton. That's the home of the Dambusters, 617 Squadron. Okay,
just for everyone that's listening, it's the Royal Air Force, if anyone's wondering what the RAF is.
Okay, Royal Air Force. Sorry about that.
Yeah, sorry, no. It's Canadian Royal Air Force out here.
We had a string of 6, maybe 7 investigations on that airbase. In fact, it was the picture of the dog that got me interested in RF Scampton, because the dog in the picture was meant to. It was been said that the dog was actually belonged to Guy Gibson. So
who's Guy Gibson?
Guy Gibson, he was the leader of the bombing expedition to the dams. He was the pilot. He was the I can't think what you call him. He was the leader anyway. They all followed him. But it was that trying to piece together about the dog that got us into RAF Scampton. We went from Scampton to RAF Curtin Lindsey. RAF Curtin Lindsey, we actually caught. We've got a bit. I'll put a picture onto you later on, Pete.
Yeah, we can post it.
We was allowed into a hangar that hadn't been open for several years. And as we got into the hangar, we just started snapping away with the cameras. And one of the pictures caught somebody walking across the hangar in front of us. Now, this person wasn't a member of our team. He wasn't a member of the security staff. He had no eyes. And he was carrying something. Yeah. We ended up.
Did you see what it was carrying, or was it just like a shadow kind of?
What somebody told us was it looked like he was carrying one of the incendiaries that they used to bomb the aircraft up with. Whether or not that's right or not, I don't know, but that's what they said it looked like.
Right.
From there, we went to the Petwood Hotel. This was another place where Guy Gibson had been. In that building, I caught a photo of a person in white. Again, Pete, I'll send you the picture of that. You can see it. Again, it was a room that was empty. I think you might have done.
Yeah,
the room was empty. We was finishing for the night, so we were just snapping with. It was a spectrum camera, no flash, and I caught an image of a person. Anyway, I'll send you those pictures. You can see them. Some of the rooms, you have the door locks going when there's nobody outside the doors. So it was very, very interesting. Wasn't overactive, but there was some activity. We've been to a building in Newark, that's near to Lincoln, where King Charles I spent his last nights before he got arrested and taken off and had his head lost. So lots of history. Yeah, I love history.
So has there been that moment where you, I guess you got scared, you jumped, like something that, where you just went, oh my God, what the hell was that?
The pictures, we didn't see it in the pictures until we started looking through the evidence.
Okay.
But as it goes on investigations, I don't jump. I just accept what happens.
Right.
Because it's there for a reason. We do have members of the team that jump and run, but that's them, not me.
Yeah.
Always go to it. Always go to it, not away from it.
So
has there been anything that just sort of stopped your heart a little bit, or are you pretty calm during the investigations?
I tried to be calm. Hang on, you just reminded me, there was a public house. We was just doing a bit of a walk around, seeing where we was. And I didn't know that the landlord had come through a door behind me. And at the time, was stood behind me.
Oh.
I was taking some pictures and I turned. I was nearly gone. That did make me jump.
So it wasn't a ghost, it was just the human.
Just a landlord. Yeah. I've been pushed upstairs. I've been scratched. You've probably heard it, the whistling in your ears. You've probably had that. The cold, the heat. But unless you want to learn about it, you don't go away from it. No.
Have you ever had the this is common, I've had this so many times over the years, and I'm not a great believer in not paranormal, in like personal experiences and stuff like that, because unless they're validated by a second source, because there could be a number of factors and stuff like that. But have you ever had that cobweb feeling where you walk into certain areas and it feels like that cobweb's wrapped around your face, and it looks like you're trying to peel your face off?
Yes, regular, especially in my garage. But no, I've had that.
Yeah. So obviously, you kind of mentioned equipment and stuff like that. So how's the equipment evolved over the years in relation to when you first started to where we are now?
When I first started, hold 1 second. Do you remember these things, Pete?
Oh God, yeah, the original
EMFs. I still have a couple in my basement, I think.
I started off with one of them, a compass, and a dictaphone and a digital camera. Oh, that's what I started with. Do you know something? They're still the best parts of the equipment. I still use them. I still use the digital camera. I still use that EMF meter because it works. I still use the dictaphone because we all know how good they are. But of course, the kit has expanded. I've got different EMF meters, different K2 meters, SLR cameras, which I'm not that happy about. But the kit expands, and a lot of that is because of what you see on the telly. Sorry,
no,
TV or television.
yeah, television. That's it.
You see it on there, you go, I've got to have that. And then you
Yeah.
get it and think, why did I get that?
So you mentioned a compass, and that was one of the, like, the first set of equipment I had was a second-hand tape recorder with, you remember the old microphones and stuff like that. I had a compass as well, and I had a lot of kind of knickknacks that I made myself out of, various like pipe cleaners and with little bells and stuff like that I used to hook up to door handles and stuff like that. Back then, you kind of you were more inventive in relation to the stuff you use, because obviously back then I was on a budget more than what I am more recently. But with the compass, have you ever had any weird readings off of that at all?
Yes, but the problem with the compass, people with mobile phones, you don't have to get right next to it. Have them turned off, it can make them twitch. So the compass is just an indicator there's something not right. I've never had them spinning, but I do know people who have.
Right.
That's what I'd like to happen, see them spinning. But that has never happened, not yet.
Okay.
With the compass, that I found that if you ever used one, it has to be used in a particular controlled environment, where if you put it by the fridge or anything with kind of a high power output on it, it does create flickering on the compass and stuff like that, because of the magnetic, it creates static in the magnetic field on that. So that was always a problem with that. But no, interesting for sure. So as you go through with your equipment and stuff like that, is there any consistencies in relation to the equipment that you have in producing evidence, i.e. For example, for your cameras and stuff like that, you mentioned that you were using a full spectrum camera to take pictures and stuff like that. Has there been any parallels in relation to having a camera at a certain lens to capturing evidence, that kind of thing? What kind of works better for you?
I personally find that with a camera, the ones where you just shooting and you don't know what you're shooting at, they're the ones you get the best results. When you're setting something up, you become disappointed because you set it up, nothing's happened, or nothing you seen has happened. But it could have happened if you'd just been snapping away. Does that make sense?
No, totally. It's always that thing because we used to use a lot of camera, like mobile cameras, and it was always the way when we set up a camera in a particular position, something would always happen a couple of inches to the right hand side of the camera without the eyesight. Like we had it in the theatre in Vancouver where me and my friend Scott and a chair moved, and it was just out of eyesight of the camera by literally a couple of inches. So it's always, it's sod's law, I guess, or Murphy's law, whatever you want to call it. But it's always been the way.
One of the things that I've become very passionate about with the camera is cleaning it. The amount of dust. People go on about orbs.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You clean your camera lens, orbs virtually disappear.
Yeah.
And that let your camera adjust to the environment. If you're outside, don't take it out your pocket and just start snapping, because you've got condensation building up inside that camera. Let it adjust. Clean the lens, and I'll tell you something, you'll hardly ever see an orb.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I find that a lot of people, no matter what you try to explain in regards to orbs, no matter how many times you try to give them that logical explanation in regards to it, they're still going to be screaming that they caught their grandmother, after they vacuumed.
Oh, Kathy, you've gone on mute. You've hit the mute button.
I was enjoying that.
I know. letting her getting carried away with
I
it.
am. Is that
Yeah.
better?
Yeah.
It was like, no, you're not allowed to talk.
I know. You're not allowed to talk about orbs.
You're not. No. Apparently, the community got very mad when I talked about orbs.
Yeah.
It's got to be a believer.
There you go.
Yeah, it's do you do more at home investigations, or are they mostly historical or building?
Right, okay. We will go anywhere where people will allow us into their buildings. Everywhere has got to be invited. We won't just go
Right.
into a derelict. We won't.
Yeah.
That's not us. We never charge, so there's no money on the table.
Right.
So we work around people's goodwills. And the amount of people that come to us is incredible because they know we just do it for the knowledge. That opens doors.
Yeah.
When money starts being talked about, that closes doors.
Mm-hmm.
And it also makes when money is spoken about, it makes the evidence not quite so the results that you're wanting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you have
We get that here too.
Yeah, you have somebody paying to go on an investigation. Nothing happens. They think, why do I pay that money? So you get some teams that sort of warm things up a bit, and I don't agree with that.
We do have groups here, that do charge, right? And we never did. Peter, I know Peter's groups never did, but it brings a different tone to the investigation. Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing, what are you charging for? You can't, know, like
you can't charge for something you can't quantify. We're not, and Paul and I have had this conversation many times over the years. It's just, you'd hire a plumber to come over your house to, put a tap into your bathroom. But when we come over to your house, we're not, there's no, we're not qualified in what we do. We're all students in what we do as well. So in retrospect to that, what we give you as well, because it hasn't been, proven what we've given you is actually real. Why should we charge that? And it's kind of there's a lot of parallels as well throughout the whole paranormal community in relation to charging and stuff like that. It's just, we do it for the research and that's it, because selfishly we inside we do it for the thrill of the moment. We do for the validation that there is actually something else out there, which everyone does it for, deep and down in your heart. But then also, obviously on the other side as well, we do it to help people as well, and that's key more than anything else, kind of thing. So.
Exactly, Pete. What is your take on people that have got under 18-year-olds in the house, or the try to involve under 18-year-olds in investigations? What's your thoughts on that? Is
that what in relation to investigators or actual people having people in the house?
What's your thoughts about them under the age of 18?
I'm kind of, if I turn around and said that I believe that paranormal investigators should all be over 18, I'll be contradicting myself, because I actually started investigating when I was 16, 17. But in relation to having, minors present during an investigation, it's imperative that I feel that they shouldn't be around, anyone at that sensitive age, despite the fact that the client would turn around and say, well, my daughter's mature and stuff like that. It's not, Satan's not going to manifest himself or anything like that, but also at the same time, what we're doing is kind of should be censored to a degree as well in relation to the audience, because we're talking to dead people, and it's, if someone is young and they don't necessarily have a better understanding of what we do, they're going to be particularly sensitive to it. I have had one investigation about 10 years ago when I one of the first investigations I did with VPS where the child was actually present. And that was probably one of the biggest mistakes I ever done. Like the client had to deal with sleepless nights with a child afterwards and stuff like that. And it just became, it was a mess, but it was more of a mess on the client side than what it was ours, because she was like, no, I want my daughter to be here. And we were like, okay, no, we can recommend her not being here. But she said, no, my daughter wants to be here. And that's it, kind of thing. So to a degree, you have to respect the client's wish as well at the same time. But as a general rule of thumb after that, it's not worth the aggravation in that. I mean, maybe an 18-year-old, with a certain sense of maturity, or a 17-year-old, perhaps. But I think that it should just be as a rule of thumb that no minors should be around.
My kids would come. I have 2 older daughters. At this time, my son was quite young, when I was actively investigating. My daughters were 18 and 20, and they would come on investigations. But, also being in the field, they also knew how to behave and how to react. And, there wasn't hysterics or anything like that. But we've been on investigations where, again, like Peter had said, that they want the kids to be in the house. And we've just said, look at, the bottom, whether or not, we suggested on the moral issue, because we don't believe in that. I don't think that kids should be around the investigation, but we did say to them, look at, it's harder for children to be quiet. And if you want actual, EVT, like physical evidence, it's going to be harder if the kids are moving around and they're not always identifying their movements or speaking or talking or what. And then for us, that was sort of a way to say, oh, okay, like we said, well, our evidence can't be accurate, in that degree, because if there was whispers, we don't know if that's going to come from the child or if it's going to.
Kathy, you got mute again. Perhaps
it has something to do with my mic here. I don't know what I'm hitting it. But yeah, we wouldn't investigate with children in the house either. So
Thank you.
Yeah, we actually just said no. If you have to have your kids there, maybe you should contact another team, because we're not here for amusement. This is our time. It's our energy. We're taking time out of our day to do this for you. So it's disrespectful to, give us that respect for our wishes as well, because we are taking our time to do this for you also. Like, we want to be here to help, but we can't, in this circumstance. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So just to jump in there, anyone that's watching at the moment, if you have any questions, feel free to post any comments, and we can voice it through towards the end of the show. So moving on, so we've got there seems to be like an influx in the field at the moment, and I know that this is a particular a nerve ending for you as well, Paul, in relation to demonic cases and stuff like that. I wholeheartedly know your opinion on demons and stuff like that, but over the years, have you ever come across any kind of negative? I hate using the word demonic, but I never do. Have you ever come across any demonic, any negative cases where things have got physical, or there's been a particular case where sometimes there's a misunderstanding of communication, that kind of thing, but there's been a case where you've gone into and you said, okay, this is bad juju, we need to either walk away, or we need to get like a third party in to perhaps do something that's above our level?
No.
Plain and simple, no.
No, absolutely not.
Right. Like I said earlier on, I've been scratched, I've been pushed, but I don't believe in the word demonic. It's how people interpret things, and it sells books, it sells films, it sells TV programs, but in the 20 odd years, I've never never found anything that I could call demonic. I like to be proven wrong. if somebody wants to prove that to me, by all means. But
Right.
there you go. I've opened a challenge there, haven't I?
Yeah, challenge Annika. There you go.
Would I ask another team to come in? I have done. We work with several other teams, but normally we ask them to come in to help to try and validate what we've already found. I've asked to have somebody come in to clear a place. No, we can do that ourselves. We have the ability. We can do that.
Okay. Have you had to do a lot of that?
No.
No. Okay.
Normally, when you speak to people, when you put them in mindset that where they are is their house. It's where they live.
Right.
It's they own what they do in that house. When you put them in control of the house, the problems disappear.
Yeah.
Mind over matter.
Yeah. The last things you do is go in and say, "Oh, you've got a demonic spirit here that's going to rip your arms off." No. No.
Yeah.
That actually, that things like that actually ruined a lot of places here in Edmonton and Alberta, you know, for us to be able to go in, because we did have teams that would go in and say, oh yeah, you've got a demon, or you've got a portal, or you got the, you know, gates of hell coming out of your closet, whatever kind of crap that they came up with. And it made it very difficult, you know, for a legitimate team to be able to go in and investigate some of our more historical buildings because of such bad behavior from previous teams. So,
yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, we've had over the years. We've obviously with the shows like Ghost Adventures and stuff like that, and you know it's fictional because it's TV, it's entertainment and stuff like that. And you know, I totally respect that. And then there's that line in the sand. But then you've got in BC that there's been an influx of so-called demonic cases, and 99.9% of the time it's driven by a so-called medium that has said it more than anything else. There was one I would like to give out his name, but there was a medium in Vancouver that went to a particular house in Surrey, BC, and he turned around and said that there was 40 demons in someone's house. So it's that whole stigma is just totally out of hand here, and it's because of what we're in a field where there's no clear direction. You can't just pick up the yellow pages and flick through and go, oh, there's a paranormal investigator. There's no right, there's no correct path in relation to where we're going to be going. So it's there's no governing body in it, and it's just kind of out of hand on that respect. But so over the years, Paul, obviously the field has evolved, in the equipment's evolved and stuff like that. So what do you, and I may be putting you on the spot here in relation to this question, so what do you think that like the pros and cons of the field are over the years since it's changed, since the evolution of our field, I guess?
I think regarding what we see on TV, it's down to them. I now carry a full van worth of equipment because you see what you see on the telly. I've got to have it. I think also you get people watch the TV programs. They believe what they're seeing on the telly, and then they believe what they're seeing in the home is the same as what's on TV.
right.
So has the paranormal world that we now live evolved because of what we're seeing on the telly? Sorry, television. I shouldn't say telly. Television. Are they driving what people are seeing rather than what people in the houses are driving what they should be seeing?
Yeah.
You go to somebody who doesn't know anything about the SLS, but they've seen it on the TV. They know how it works. No, they don't, because they haven't used it. They don't realise that the image flips to what you're looking at. The right is on the left. They don't see that on the television. I think the world of the paranormal has evolved more for the TV watchers than it has for the people who just want to know. because TV takes over.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, we've dealt with a lot of, you know, these people that are like, you know, all of a sudden they're coming up with names that they, you know, that they saw in Ghost Adventures or, you know, one of these other, they'll be like, I have Belbazaar in my house. It's like, no, you have a mouse. You call it Herman. That's what you got in your house, honey. I think that's it. There's no evidence of, you know, any paranormal activity. And I find that people have that hard time differentiating between the normal to the paranormal, right? Everything is, instead of looking at it as a paranormal or instead of a normal element, they're heightened and looking at everything as that paranormal. And I mean, if most people kind of used, I guess to some degree, that common sense differentiating between, did the door close because of the wind, or did the door close because, you know, something was opening and closing it? There's that massive difference. And I feel like a lot of people, they don't want to take that time to try to differentiate between the two.
Agree.
I don't know if you guys deal with that a lot, you know, in England, or in the UK there, but Mr. Dave here, he says Hollywood killed the industry. Absolutely, it did. Absolutely. I feel that Hollywood I think it helped bring it to the forefront so that it was more of a norm, as opposed to, like, it did help us in some degree to be able to, it opened doors for us, but it also heightened the imaginations of many people.
I think like, as just an overview with, you know, my comparisons are obviously most haunted back in the UK and what we did, you know, the up to thousands of shows you see out here. I think that to a degree, well, yeah, no, I absolutely wholeheartedly agree that Hollywood has killed the industry, but also at the same time that there's documentary shows out there that have brought it to the surface, but in a more positive light. Things, you know, like Josh Gay and stuff like that. We were talking about the other day, Paul, and it's just, you know, shows like that which are, you know, they actually document what we should be doing in the field as an investigator, rather than theorizing it and, you know, making it into Hollywood where every single destination you go to, you know, something happens. And to a degree where it's maximized 100%, you know, they've pushed it out 100% just to keep the viewers on it, kind of thing. So I think it's pros and cons in that respect. So what do you think the pros are then, Paul, on the evolution of the field?
The pros are we're still here. We're still able to fight our corner. We can still try to bring rational thoughts and means and logic into it. And that does make it's harder. It's harder work, but we can do it. That's why people like you, Pete, and you, Catherine, and myself are still here. If we just let Hollywood take over, we'd be sat down and doing nothing now.
Right.
Pretty much. Okay.
It's true. Yeah. Yeah. Is your family involved in it at all? I don't know. Are you married or have kids, or are they a part of it, or how do they insert themselves into it at all?
To a sense, yes, they do. They understand that this is my. Oh, I don't like the term hobby. It's not my business, but a hobby it's a bit more than a hobby.
Right.
And they realise that. I've got one of my daughters does involve herself with investigations when she can. Yeah, the family are all right behind it, yes.
Okay. That's pretty cool.
It's more of a hobby turned into an obsession in that degree. Yes. It's what you wake up in the morning and think about first thing in the morning rather than a cup of tea. It's like, oh, let's go on to Facebook, or let's do this, let's do that. And it's just, yeah, it becomes that after a while. Okay, well, thanks for join us, Paul. I appreciate the chat, and I'll thank you, Catherine.
It was wonderful to meet you. It was such a pleasure. Thank you.
And if anybody's got any demons,
yes,
keep them.
I'll be interested in that as well, because I work with an ordained exorcist down in Washington State. So if there's any demons out there, I'm the boy.
Okay, we'll see you again.
Yeah.
It was wonderful to meet you. Thanks so much for being on the show today.
Thank you.
Brilliant. No, thanks guys for tuning in, and stay tuned for our show next week on the I Want to Believe chat show.
I'll be there.
Take care.
Goodbye.